So great. Thank you today for joining us. And we're going to be going through a process of reflecting on progress to date on our strategic plan, and really thinking about what refinements we need to make and what we need to focus on in the coming year. And that's what today is all about. We're going to be doing this presentation. I've done this presentation at the teacher advisory group. I've already done this presentation with my high school cabinet, student cabinet. We're good. Tonight we're doing it with Deepak. We did it with school committee last night. So we're going to just create opportunities through between now and the end of April to really engage in a process of feedback on where we're at and what shifts we may need to make. We've already gone through a process to identify what we think the priorities could be for next year. So we're looking to get feedback on that tonight. But before we get started, I did want to just start with a little bit of an icebreaker. If you could go 2 slides ahead. And I just want everybody to take 30 seconds and think about slide number 3. Think about what is one great thing that you have experienced or witnessed this school year. I'm going to allow some think time. And if anybody's willing to share, I'd appreciate it. And if not, that's okay too. Slide 3. That's 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. There you go.
Are we just saying it or putting it in the chat?
We're just thinking right now, and then we're gonna give like a little more time. All right, if anything comes to mind, please, Ms. Regali, it sounds like you're excited to jump in. I'd love to hear what that one great thing that you've experienced this school year was or witnessed.
From not from my parent perspective, but from my staff perspective, I have a student who has gotten full rides to Amherst College and Northeastern, no loans, just completely free. And to be accepted at Amherst College is like, it's like under 9%. I can't say her name yet because she doesn't like to be in the spotlight just yet. But it's really nice to see students' hard work pay off in that way.
That's great. I can say one of my great experiences was as recent as last night. We had some students from Ian White present at the school committee meeting, and it was by far one of the best student showcases that we've had. So cute. They performed a play in English and Spanish, and I believe these were 3rd graders, but they just showed a tremendous amount of courage and creativity and acting skills. It put a huge smile on my face. That was one great thing that I witnessed this school year. And then every opportunity that I've had to go out and present the Superintendent Soto Award to a staff member and a student has just been, it's one of my favorite things to do, to just get out and recognize some students that are going above and beyond and not only doing well themselves, but helping other students, and then some staff members that are doing the same. So those are 2 great things that I witnessed this school year and have been a part of. Anyone else? Wendy.
No, I just had my moment because the superintendent of schools just said that my son's presentation last night was the greatest thing. So that was very exciting. And he had a great time doing it. And it was actually, Claire is in 2nd grade now. The girl that was speaking with him. So that they were in 3rd grade and 1st grade last year. And now they're in 4th and 2nd. Yeah, so it was pretty impressive. But I also will give I want to give props to Miss Martinez at Ian White, because she, one of the great things I've seen is that she's asked my son, who's in kindergarten, she said she wanted to encourage him to speak up a little more in class. He talks a lot at home, but not in school. And so we started a challenge with him to ask questions instead of starting to cry. And he's doing it. So I appreciate her asking him to try something, and him trusting that it was okay to do it. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you for sharing. We could move on to the next slide, please. And I just want to go over really the purpose of today. I spoke about it briefly, but you know, it's interesting. We grade our students. We send report cards home. We have them do assessments and we ask our teachers to review student data to inform their practice. We're no different. We need to make sure that, you know, although we had a very inclusive and thoughtful multi-year strategic plan, we need to make sure that on an annual basis and throughout the year, we're checking ourselves and grading ourselves and seeing what's working well and seeing what needs to be strengthened so that we start next school year with a solid plan. So we are in the review stages. So we developed the plan, we've acted out the plan, and this whole process is about reviewing and refining so that we have a strong plan for next year. And this is a process that we're going to go through every single year. So expect next year to go through a similar feedback process. So these next couple of slides are really about our progress to date. You know, looking back on the last year in the strategic plan. If you could move on to the next slide. As many of you know, we went through a process where we heard from over 1,500 stakeholders. After reviewing my entry plan findings report, we did a lot of things that involved getting feedback and the many components that resulted from the strategic planning process. You know, we set a vision, we set a new mission, we got a new tagline, and Juntos Podemos, together we can. We looked at what our core beliefs are as a Holyoke Public School District. We had 7 equity commitments that we made sure we got a lot of feedback and input on. We were able to develop the learner profile and what we, you know, expect out of our students and what we want to see. And then we went through a process of setting goals, establishing priorities, and creating annual strategies that are going to really get at those priorities. There's a lot of details. Most of you have seen the strategic plan, but if you're interested in seeing more of these components and the details, we definitely have that available for review on our website. One thing that I want to lift on the next slide is our vision, just one of the components. And, you know, I said this to our students, and I'll say this to our families. You know, when I read this, some of you may feel like, yep, that's us. And some of you might feel like, you know what, that's not us. And a vision is really designed to be a North Star, like where we see ourselves in the future. What are we working towards? And in HPS, we established a vision that HPS is a high-performing school system where students reach their full potential, where educators inspire, where families are our partners, and where the community thrives. You know, that's a vision, like it's real. We talk about you know, family engagement all the time, and you know, valuing our educators and making sure that students are performing at grade level. That vision really embodies where we see Holyoke Public Schools in the future and what we strive to be. Aligned to that vision, we've listed our priorities in the strategic plan. And this is a new graphic. I'm really proud of it because it really ties everything together. As part of the strategic planning process, we did establish early literacy as a priority area, and making sure that students, by the time they reach third grade, are reading at grade level. We're strong believers of that. Not only are we believers of that, but we can't just say we want to do that without providing the necessary support. So our budget needs to reflect that. Our professional development needs to reflect that. The other priority that we establish is learning experiences and ensuring that schools provide rigorous, culturally responsive instruction in all content areas to all of our students, not just early literacy, not just some of our students, all of our classroom and all of our students. And then this third one, which has really emerged as a focus area, is around inclusion and making sure that we're providing differentiated in-classroom supports in the classroom so that students with diverse learning needs thrive. That is loud and clear a culture that we want to have here in Holyoke Public Schools. The whole child was another one, and making sure that students are provided opportunities to access social emotional learning, mental health supports, and that they get opportunities to explore their passions. You see that in some of our clubs, you see that even at the school committee last night where second graders and third graders were able to engage in a project that allowed them to act, allowed them to display their talent in terms of artwork. And it was just fun all around. Like all of those kids, that experience, they're going to remember that experience for a long time. And we want to make sure we make that a reality for a lot of our students. And then lastly, we can't do this work without our staff. And, it is a priority of ours to continue to grow and retain talented, diverse staff. This stoplight reporting is really, I mentioned to you, we had those 5 priorities. And last year, when we went through our strategic planning process, we set goals, and then we set 17 strategies that we wanted to work on for this school year. And on a quarterly basis, we get updates from everybody that's managing all of these projects. Where are you at? Did the things that we said we were going to do that are aligned to these priorities, how are we doing? We use a green, yellow, red reporting system. So green means we're on track. So you can see all but 3 of our 17 projects are on track as of Q3. And the 3 that are slightly behind, one of them involves implementing a mentorship program. We haven't quite lifted that yet, and we that is a heavy focus in the next few weeks to make sure that we're partnering with Mass Mentors. And I myself, for example, am going to be a mentor to a middle school student. We hope to reach at least 20 of our middle school students, focusing on the middle school grades this year. But we can't just throw people out there and tell them to be mentors without giving them any type of professional development around what that needs. So happy to report that we are going to be back on track with that. And it is important to me that, we do it right. So we're, right now we're going to start really small and hopefully grow that so that more people have an opportunity to mentor some of our students and help support that whole child. And then the other one was around attendance. We're still struggling with attendance. And we did launch recently our attendance campaign. I think we're getting back on track. But like a lot of these strategies where, it doesn't necessarily tie hand in hand with some of the outcomes we're seeing for students. So attendance is one of those data points that we're continuing to work at it, but we're not quite where we'd like to be. But we did identify 6 top priorities that we're on track for. And I'm just going to name 2 of them are around early literacy and making sure we implement the early literacy plan with high quality curriculum and training, and that we create data systems to support that. We've done that this year. We've hit the things we said we were going to do. We're happy to report that we've been able to do that. And then the next two are around learning experiences, making sure that we plan for rigorous grade level curriculum, instruction, and teaching and learning, and reorganizing our schools. So many of you are aware that's been a topic for this year for sure, and making sure that we have a solid rezoning plan. We did change the way we deliver our socio-emotional learning curriculum and trails. We've been able to get more access points for students and more people delivering that. So that was one thing that is on track, but it's not perfect, and we need to, part of this process is developing what our plan is for next year. And then providing equity training to all staff. By the end of the school year, all staff would have gone through the equity imperative module 1. It's a 4-module professional development series that's done asynchronously. And then there's debriefs at the school level to really unpack some of that. So happy to report that all staff, not just our teachers, not just our principals, not just our paras, all staff are going to have opportunities to engage in this important training. Now we're going to get into some academic, like we're progress monitoring how we've done, and looking at student data is important to us. And here you can see STAR early literacy, reading, and math data as far as students performing at or above grade level. We use this color coding system. So yellow really means that we are better than we were last year. Last year in the winter, we were at about 34%, but we're not anywhere near where we set to be, which was about 60% of our students in early literacy STAR being able to be at grade level or at or above grade level. So when we say early literacy, we mean K through 2. And then in reading, that's not just early grades, that's the entire district that participates in STAR. You can see that we're below where we were last year. That's why that's red. And the target that we set for the end of the school year is about 35%. And we're not halfway there, but we're halfway through the school year. So that's concerning. And, we're definitely concerned that we might not be able to meet that benchmark that we set for ourselves, both in reading and in math. On the next slide, I think this is one of the most important data points to look at, especially bouncing back from a pandemic where across the entire state and nation, we saw dips in student performance. And in Holyoke, it's just not enough for us to have 1 year of growth, right? Like our students are chronically underperforming as measured by MCAS and other data points. So we had an aggressive goal this year of making sure that our students are making 1.3 years of growth towards that grade level growth in early literacy, in reading, and in math. And when we pull this data, it looks a lot better than the previous one, which is just measuring at or above grade level. This is measuring growth. So, we are on track. You could see in that green, you can see that we're pretty close to where we wanted to be, which is about 0.75 years of growth is that measure. This represents how many students have already met that 0.75 growth. So the benchmark for the year is 35% and 36% in reading and math, and we're almost there, and we still got more, we still got plenty of instruction days to go. So we feel confident that 35, at least 35 and 36% of our student are going to hit that growth of 1.3 years. The next slide, we've made a commitment. It's one of our equity commitments to constantly look at data and dissect it in a way that make sure that students that need the most are getting the most. So this is just a slide that really shows how our students that are on IEPs compared to non-IEPs, how are English language learners compared to non-English language learners, and our dually identified students. And I think really the thing that I want to lift, which is why inclusion is such an important thing, is you could see that the students that are struggling the most academically are dually identified. You can see that in the red box, 2 red boxes to the right. These are students that do have an IEP, but also are working on language acquisition. Those students are well behind the district average, and which is why we need to just come up with a different approach and make sure they're getting the supports that they need to access that grade level curriculum and instruction. And that's really the thing that I want to lift on this slide. And there are some non-academic data points that we're going to continue every year to report out on. One of them being chronic absenteeism. That's been we recently launched our attendance campaign, and there's a heavy focus on really twisting the narrative to positive. We used to have a culture where it was really negative when kids weren't showing up. This is what these are the consequences, and we're trying to spin that narrative in our attendance campaign to show families and educate families the importance of showing up and how much more likely their students are to succeed. So we're at 39% in K-8, and we're at 48% in grades 9 through 12 that are chronically absent, which is lower than where we were last year. But I think in our best years, we were much lower than that. We'd like to see those numbers closer to the 20% range. So we got a lot of work to do there. Then there's some data points in here around Panorama. We had really low participation as of Monday, so I decided to extend the survey window. And when we do finalize and close the survey, we'll be able to report out on important things that we like to look at here. One for students being one of the most important, and students feeling like they belong in school. These 3 at the bottom are newer ones. We haven't had these before, but reflecting on some of our equity commitments, we want to hear from our students, we want to hear from our staff, and we want to hear from our families how well we're doing living up to the commitments that we made to build an anti-racist, inclusive, and culturally responsive community. So we don't have that data yet, but we'll be sure to report out on it. And then lastly, there's other data points that we need to wait till they come out to report out on. So we do have, we now have graduation rate data, but our data team is working to put some slides together so that we can incorporate it into this presentation the next time we meet. But we do measure how well students are doing making progress towards English language proficiency through access. We have the graduation rate. We measure how students that are making substantial progress as it relates to DESE's accountability system. And then we measure retention. And I'll just go on record to say that I know that retention is not going to be good. Early indications are showing, part of the impacts of the pandemic is the impact it has had on staffing and people leaving the education, leaving education in general. And I know that's going to be reflected in our data. And I know that, rezoning may have an impact on that. So, I expect the numbers in comparison to previous years to be not as good, but we need to make sure that we build priorities and goals to really get at that and bring that back up to where it needs to be. And we'll report back out on all of these data points once they're available. So anybody have questions right now?
I do. It's Wendy.
Go ahead.
On the retention of teachers, you mentioned the pandemic and you mentioned the restructuring. What about money? Are they getting paid enough relative to other districts? And
Yeah,
is there anything you can do about that?
This latest comp model that we put together, we looked at surrounding communities, and on average, it was a 10 point, it was above 10% increase, the latest comp model that we did, but we did look at surrounding districts. But I will say we did look at, you know, where on the scale we're not competitive with surrounding districts, and we addressed those. One of the areas where we were really, really low was at the beginning of the scale. So like teachers that were coming right out of college, it was hard to attract teachers because the other surrounding districts, they you know, that portion of their comp model was a lot higher than ours. And I think somewhere in the middle of the comp model. So we really, really looked at where are we not competitive. We pulled Chicopee, we pulled South Hadley, Westfield, Springfield, and other like districts, and said like, okay, look at our comp model, look at their comp model. Where is it that we're not competitive? And we righted that this year. And I've tried really hard. You know, we did retention bonuses last year. You know, we're doing rezoning impact bonuses this year. Tried really hard to do everything we can financially. I think what I've heard mostly from staff is time. We do have a longer day, you know, than some other districts, based on the hours required and the turnaround plan. You know, it's not easy, but you know, hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
I have a question about that as well.
Yeah.
I'm really interested in the teacher retention, because I think it's kind of like the base of many of the other commitments and priorities, like to have an equity commitment, like our students deserve, you know, consistency and quality. I think, right, to obtain early literacy, we need teachers who have been trained and then stay in the district after getting the training. Like it just is, you know, the foundation. And I'm wondering if you've looked for input from teachers on how to retain them, and if you're listening to that feedback to implement, you know, exactly what they're suggesting. Because I think, right, like teachers know how they could be retained. I mean, definitely money would not, money never hurts, but it definitely is not the only thing I think people would identify as, you know, an incentive to stay.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I try to get feedback from our staff often. And I think the biggest thing I heard about retention is, you know, Holyoke is not an easy district to teach in. Like, you know, if you work in Holyoke, it's because you want to work in Holyoke and this is the work you want to do. I've heard more about time, like teachers wanting time back. So one of the mid-year shifts that I made last year, reflecting on that, what I was hearing from my teacher advisory group, what I was hearing throughout the strategic planning process, is that we gave back, particularly in our K-8 schools. We had professional development that was very much principal led every single day. And we gave back some of that time to teachers and created a model where principals get 2 days and then teachers get the other 2 days to really collaborate amongst each other, and to, you know, that was very important to teachers, and we reflected on that and made some small shifts. I also hear like teachers wanting a lot of support, and I know that longer day gives us a little bit of opportunity to provide some of that coaching and support that teachers want. So it's a tough balance, right? You know, if we did shorten the school day, for, like, how do you get at those things that you want to improve that teachers are also asking for? So we made some small changes to address that. But to answer your question, yeah, we've done staff surveys. We've, you know, I meet with our teacher advisory group every month. And that has been a regular topic. I think we can do a better job. So I think our exit interview process could be a little better. Like, we've laid that as an expectation, and I don't know, like, I don't think I can go anywhere and say, like, these are all the reasons why people are leaving. And that's an area that I want to strengthen a little bit. We do expect to have exit interviews. Oftentimes we have them scheduled and staff don't show up. So it's a miss there. But I'm wondering if there's things we can do to improve that, so that we're really collecting data on why people are leaving. So I just wanted to, I'm going to take another 30 seconds. We have a model. It's Juntos Podemos, together we can. And that requires everybody to be involved. So the fact that we have so many parents here, I appreciate that. I want you to think for 30 seconds, what is one way that you have contributed to the implementation of this plan? And I'll just take 30 seconds. Great. Anyone want to share out? It's okay if you don't.
I guess the thing for me is like really using the as a parent, using the two-way communication with the teachers. I hadn't really used it in previous years. Ethan, give me a second, please. In the previous years, I haven't really used it. So this year I made a conscious effort to like use the messenger so I could connect directly with the teacher. And I've seen the improvement of our communication just because I, as a parent, took that, you know, to like actually see it and report back to the teacher and engage in a conversation that way.
Yeah, so that's aligned really well to our vision of our families really being partners and engaging with the district. So thank you. Please continue to do that. Anyone else want to share?
I tried to email the teachers. Oh, sorry.
No, that's fine. You can go ahead first.
I try and email the teachers on when I'm really appreciative of something, you know, especially if my child comes home and says something positive about their teacher. And for me, that is like supporting keeping teachers in the district. Sometimes teachers don't know how appreciative we are as students and parents. So I try and let them know whenever possible.
Yeah, thank you for this. Really fits well in that educator development, and, you know, aligned to one of my proud moments, right, of this year, and recognizing strong teachers. So I appreciate that. The next two slides, I kind of want to combine these, and I'm interested to hear what's going well with our strategic plan, and, you know, what needs to be improved with our strategic plan. And after we have this conversation, I'm gonna have a conversation with you about, we had a data retreat where we looked at data, looked at progress to date, and then suggested what our focus is gonna be for next year. And we want to get feedback on that. But based on everything that I've presented so far, and based on your experience as a parent, and if you're a staff member, feel free to speak from that perspective as well. What's going well and what's not going well? What do we need to improve?
Anthony, and I also want to let the families know that we did put the survey in the chat, just in case they want to elaborate more on their answers. So we could also collect that data if they're, you know, for whatever reason, if they have a noisy kid in the background and they don't want to mute themselves, they could use also the survey that's there.
Yeah, thank you, Stephanie. So yeah, that reminds me that I had to say, we do have a survey and these questions are in there. That's one way we're collecting it. If you feel comfortable with, you know, having this open dialogue and speaking what you think is going well and not going well, please do. But if you feel more comfortable just filling out the survey, that's okay too. I see a hand raise, Ms. Latasha Hinton.
I just had a
Hope I
question.
pronounced that right.
You did. A question about the dual language programs. Are all of the schools that currently have them using the same model?
We created a plan for next year to make sure we have some consistency in the dual language model. There is going to be an exception in one of the grades, I believe, at Kelly School, based on there only being one class. But in the future, our hopes is, in the near future, our hopes is that we have a consistent model for dual language programming. I'd be happy to share that with you. We just presented to the school committee on that a couple of months ago, and I'll share that with you, Latasha.
Okay, well, I guess I'm specifically asking, I currently have 3 children at Metcalf. So next year, everybody's gonna be in different schools. I have a 3rd grader, a 5th grader, and an 8th grader. From what I've been hearing and talking to teachers, our Spanish teachers are being asked to, I guess, tone down their curriculum, meaning it's too difficult. They use an 80-20 model at Metcalf, and next year, I guess I'm concerned that my kids aren't going to be getting the same level of instruction that they've been getting all these years.
Yeah, I mean, it starts off in an 80-20 model, but then it tapers down. I don't have it in front of me, but I'm going to share it with you, Latasha.
Okay.
Erin, you have it?
Yeah,
Okay.
I know it. In like pre-KK, it's 80-20, then it's like 70-30 in 1st grade, 60-40 in 2nd, and by 3rd grade, it's about 50-50. And then in middle school and high school, it will be an SLA course, Spanish language arts, and then another course in another language, like a content course in Spanish. And also, Latasha, they did some, just a couple weeks ago, they had Zoom meetings giving the program updates in English and secondary, because we are looking to standardize, and I'd be happy to have her, Laura, send along those Zoom presentations if you'd be interested, or the slide decks.
I would like to see them.
Awesome. Could you just chat me your email address privately, and then I'll connect you with Laura.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah.
Thank you, Latasha. That's a great question. And, you know, the presentation we'll share has all that information. But it's really heavy in Spanish to start off, because we want to develop that language, and then it tapers off throughout their educational career.
And I just want to say that tapering off is like based on research, and also like what other models have been.
Yeah.
So we have been looking to standardize over the years because of that. So it's not just like Holyoke's way of doing dual language.
All right. I think we can move on to slide 19. Again, please fill out that survey so that we can make sure we get as much data as we can as we head into the May retreat, refine this, and start with a really strong plan for next school year. So really, next, we had a team of people meet. We had our, included in that meeting, we invited school committee. Unfortunately, one of the members wasn't able to attend, but we had our union leadership. So Pete McAndrew was there, our paraprofessional union leadership, June Lavelle was there. We had principals, academic directors, just a wide range of people really looking at student data and looking at our stoplight reporting, looking at our quarterly SIP review process, and seeing where we're at relative to the strategic plan, and making sure we talk about what the focus should be based on that data for next year. And we've identified 4 priorities that we really wanted to lift and focus on next year. So one of them being around inclusion. I kind of led to that, or alluded to that earlier, that red portion of that circle is just so important. We need to make sure that we establish a team-based approach and to inclusive practices, so that students are getting the support that they need in the classroom. So, you know, just because we have an ELL teacher, that doesn't mean, you know, those are my students. Like, we want to create a team-based approach where all the teachers are working really hard and are aligned to support all of our students, so that students that have IEPs and English language learners aren't left behind. So we've identified like 3 specific projects that we're going to work on and goals for next year. One of them being that 100% of our instructional leadership teams complete a year-long inclusive school leadership institute. So we invested a lot. We've identified this as a priority last year, and we've asked principals to adopt it. Some principals really have taken the ball and running with that and created an inclusive model for their school based on what they thought. But as a district, we really haven't provided any professional development on how to do that well. And we're partnering with a consultant to talk just about that. How do we become an inclusive school district, and what tools can our teachers, our leadership teams bring back to their schools so that we can give them the tools that they need to do it well. We can give them a model to work off of, and we expect all of our instructional leaders to participate in that this summer. We expect that by June of 2024, that 85% of our classrooms, all of our classrooms, teachers complete 6 modules on accelerating student learning and inclusive practices. So aligned to this Inclusive School Leadership Institute, they have professional development modules, and we expect 85% of our teachers to complete those modules so that they can improve their practice around inclusive schools. And then as we walk through our classrooms, we want to make sure that 80% of our classrooms are consistently implementing best inclusive practices. We have a walkthrough tool that we developed this year. We used to have, like, the academics team had a walkthrough tool. The special ed department had their own walkthrough tool. When they walked through schools, like, they were looking for different things. Then we would have, you know, our EDSOs, our school supervisors, using their own tool. And it just created all these pieces of data that weren't really aligned. We worked really hard to create one tool that everybody's using, and it's giving us a real good pulse on what we're seeing in classrooms and where we might need to support a little bit. So throughout that process, we need to look at that and make sure inclusive practices is a part of that walkthrough tool. And we hope to see that 80% of our classrooms are implementing that. We're going to continue with our early literacy priority and creating and implementing an early literacy plan. There's going to be a more of a focus on what that looks like for our core ELD and special ed teachers. So we hope that 80% of our teachers are consistently implementing strong early literacy practices, again, measured by our walkthrough tool. So part of the work that we have to do is really look at that walkthrough tool and see what adjustments we need to make for that. Brandy, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I just had a question about the 6 modules on the inclusive practices. When we're saying classroom teachers and then core ELD special ed interventionists, are specials teachers included in that? Would specials teachers be part of that training at a later date?
Yeah, that's a good question. And let me get back to you on that. That's a great question, Brandy. I'm sorry, I don't know if they're included in the modules in that inclusive practice modules. But I'll be sure to get back to you on that, Brandy.
Okay, thanks.
I don't think the plan was for them to be. Do you think they should be?
Do I think they should be?
Mhm.
Yes, absolutely. My students on IEPs deserve excellent education in reading and in music.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah, I don't want to say
I
that they
agree.
weren't. I don't know. I just got to get back with the team
Mhm.
and make sure what the scope of that. We're in the process of working with this consultant to develop the scope. We have a proposal. We've kind of poked holes at it a little bit. But deciding who's going to get it is still, we haven't finalized that yet. But that feedback is really good because I'm going to bring it back to our team.
Thank you.
I think you're absolutely right. And then the next two priorities, I said we were honing in on 4 of them. One of them is around learning experiences and supporting educators to deliver rigorous, culturally responsive grade level curriculum and instruction across all content areas. That was a multi-year strategy that we focused on last year. So we're going to continue to focus on that. And two benchmarks that we set for ourselves for next year is one of the things that we recognize this year is that our ELA curriculum is really hard in grades 3 to 5, especially for a district that does have a lot of new teachers. It's not an easy curriculum to follow. And because we have a growing dual language program, we've had to do different curriculum for grades 3 to 5. That's not that other teachers in other schools across our district are doing. So we're going through a selection process right now to hone in on what is going to be our ELA curriculum in grades 3 to 5. And one of our non-negotiables is that it's available in Spanish too, so that the same curriculum that we're using in our non-dual language schools is also being used in our dual language schools, with a lens of we want to make it easy. First of all, it has to be rigorous, it has to be aligned to the standards, and we want a curriculum that's much more easy to use, especially for our newer teachers. So we're going to be monitoring the implementation of that curriculum in grades 3 to 5 as we walk through our classrooms. It's going to be one of those things that we look at in our walkthrough tool. And then that 85% of teachers consistently implement high impact strategies from the instructional program as measured by the HPS walkthrough tool. So a lot of the learning that we've been doing this year, people call it relay, where it really is our instructional HPS instructional program. We're going to continue to monitor that and hopefully see that more teachers are consistently implementing those high impact strategies. Then the last priority area, we touched upon it earlier, is around educator development and retaining staff, but this one is around equity. So we did engage in asynchronous modules. We're going to be done with one module, but by the end of June next year, we hope that 80% of all of our staff complete modules 1 through 3. So this year we should be done with 1, and then next year we want 2 more modules to be done. We're going to continue our commitment to having an equity task force and meeting bi-monthly to support the implementation of equity recommendations. Some of the work they're going to be looking at this year is around our student handbooks and giving principals a template to use that through an equity lens. But we're going to work with our equity task force to decide what are the things that they can focus on to really help implement make some recommendations to me on things we can implement. And then aligned to the professional development, we do provide professional development to district leaders, to our principals and our assistant principals every other Friday. And our expectation next year is that they're taking that learning and they're bringing it back to their building. So we expect them to do that at least 10 times next year. Two of those 10 are going to be debriefing the modules, but then there's going to be 8 more where we will have executive director of equity and inclusion. He's going to be working with principals to take the professional learning they're getting every other Friday and help them implement it in their schools with their staff during their professional development. So now after hearing that, like, is there anything missing? Is there a strategy that we're missing in terms of making sure we have a focus area? Is there anything you would change with anything that I said about what our focus is for next year?
Anthony, I want to add, I love that I hear that teachers are gonna be getting training, and that's something that resonates, and I feel like that's gonna help and support with retention as well, because it creates a sense of belonging when you're providing professional development opportunities for staff. I'm wondering, there was a space when you were talking about data in regards STAR testing around reading. I know the district has access to giving reports to parents around what the levels are for those test scores. So we should be looking into how our family engagement coordinators in the district can support the teachers with providing this information for families. And the reason why I bring this up is because for parents, when they see that report, it gives them a sense of, okay, so my child is here, what can I do to support him at home or to support the teacher with what they're doing in the classroom? But most of the parents usually don't know where the kids are, because we don't, like, for example, if I don't ask for the reports or the test scores, I don't get them. So usually we don't know where the kids are at until we see data that the district presents. So maybe we can look into a strategy where parents can get information around this in support with the family engagement team, so we don't overwhelm the teachers as well. I mean, we can get access to the teachers if we want to, but this is a report that we can easily get and provide to the parents to give them a sense of where the kids are at, and also provide resources for extra support.
Thank you, Sada.
Can I piggyback off of that and just mention that my daughter's school has sent home the reports of the testing for the children and provided resources such as like a Saturday school learning, things of that nature, in order to get them up to where they need to be. So I know some of the schools are doing it.
But I want to clarify, Ms. Rock, for us, it only happened for the 5th grader students.
Oh, okay.
So it wasn't like a school-wide thing or district-wide thing. Like, I got it from Metcalf from my teacher because, like Sarah said, I requested it because I knew about it. So, and at Donahue, because we connected it like with attendance, and like we needed parent support in certain things. So we gave them that report to kind of like, here, this is the data we have. We have these extra days to support you, but we only did that with 5th grade.
Yeah, well then, is there definitely a way to make that for all the grades accessible to the families?
Can I just say that is possible, because I get them for all 3 of my kids.
Yep. So
I don't know if it's the
consistently
teachers
applying that, right? It sounds like Metcalf is doing it.
No,
Yeah.
I'm at Metcalf and I don't get it. So and so I would, consistency, I think would be great, especially as we are going into redistricting. I think some people, are upset if they're moving communities. And I think the last thing they would want is to feel like, well, my old school did this, I had communication about standardized test scores and here I don't get that. And
That's
feeling like they're getting less than or something. And I think having some standardized practice around communication would help families feel good.
That's really good feedback. Thank you.
Can I ask about the standardized testing too? I know that most grades also do ANET now. I'm wondering if students will continue having to do both ANET and STAR multiple times a year and MCAS, or if ANET will eventually replace STAR. My sense is that teachers value ANET data more than STAR data. It seems like a lot of testing.
Yeah, it is something that we need to analyze over time. It really is assessing. I know, these aren't high stakes tests. This is really like how it should be used is to improve practice and see where your kids are at and see how that could inform your lessons. So right now we don't have a plan to eliminate those assessments yet, but I think over time we do have to make sure that we're analyzing the effectiveness of all the tools and recognizing how much time is spent, implementing these. I think if they're done well, and they're used the way they're intended to be used, they can be really good. But if we're just using them and we're not really doing anything with them to improve, to eliminate those gaps in student learning, then what's the point in doing them, right? So it's something we need to monitor over time for sure. Right now, for next year, we don't plan on getting rid of ANET or STAR. And we have to take MCAS. I saw Ms. Garcia, that's a great, for the socio-emotional piece, whole child. I wonder how mental health training for staff, not just counselors, plays a role in specific how to talk about social, cultural issues and mental health with families. Thank you for that feedback. I feel that is a piece that I've heard a couple of times that feels like it's missing in what our focus areas are for next year. And it's an important piece, right? So thank you. Anyone else want to share? Again, if not, please fill out the survey. I do want to skip, first of all, I want you to think, align to Juntos Podemos, together we can. We're not going to popcorn out because I know we're over time, and I apologize for taking more time than what we allocated. But align to that model. Think about one action that you're going to take to be more involved with implementing the strategic plan and implementing the priority areas and some of the benchmarks that we established. It could be our vision, it could be our core beliefs, our mission. Like, really just think about one thing that you can do to be a little more involved in implementing this. Because I'm a firm believer of together we can. Like, I'm glad that's where we landed. We can't simply just fix our school district without fixing the city and fixing everything around it. And if we're going to do that, we got to work together.
I thought of one. As Ethan's saying in the back, I think with the rezoning and now the twins having to go to a new school, as a parent, like, they were very anxious and they didn't want to transition. So I made sure that I took advantage of those open hours and took the twins so they could tour the building and see their new space.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like how I supported this new,
Yeah.
the way they were moving now as a parent, instead of like being like, oh yeah, I know, like kind of like feeding into their fears. I kind of like show them there's nothing to be afraid of. Let's go see the space. You're going to be with your friends. Some of your teachers are coming. And now it's kind of like they flipped that coin. Now they're really excited about actually being big kids and being in middle school.
Yeah. Yeah, we have plans to create more opportunities like that. So that's great that you've, really focused on making sure your students have a good transition during this rezoning. As far as next steps goes, we're going to continue to solicit input through this format. So we're going to use the same presentation. We'll have an in-person meeting and opportunities to engage virtually in the month of March and April. We're gonna continue to collect and analyze current year data. We still got the climate and culture panorama data. We're doing something newer with this, we're calling it fish bowling, but it worked out really well. We had some of our expert teachers participate in a Zoom where we just asked them questions on like what's working well with our instructional practices and what's not working well. And it was pretty positive. Like it was powerful. It was a short presentation. It was really just an open dialogue with teachers. But one thing that we realized was that we need to be more intentional about who we're getting that feedback from. So we're creating multiple opportunity fish bowls. So we're creating one for just 1 to 3 year teachers. So newer teachers, we want to hear from them. We want to hear from our teachers of color. We want to hear from our paraprofessionals. So we're going to have those sessions and go through a process of soliciting, getting feedback on how we're doing. Then in May, we're going to have another retreat, make sure we get all that feedback to the team that is looking at this refinement process and incorporate it into our project plans for next year. And then we'll have a last meeting in June to wrap it up and start the year strong. There were times over the years where we didn't get to that process until December of the school year. So our goal is really aggressive and we want to be done in June so that we have a solid plan going into the school year and we're not piecing that together and letting that bleed into like the month of December when the school year had already started. That was a huge miss. We need to be more intentional about getting this work done and starting the year off with a plan. So I want to thank all of you again, encourage everyone to take the survey, encourage others to get involved. And when we create these opportunities to get feedback, your feedback's important. You provided me with a lot of things to think about. So I appreciate that. And again, I apologize for going over on time. But that does conclude our presentation. Happy to sit back if anybody has anything else they want to chat, but we don't have any more to present.
And I'm gonna stop recording.